Good Christmas afternoon. I'm still reporting on the coup. This is a report I did 4 years ago with Dr. Laura Pressley, one of the nation's most respected election integrity experts. She rightly predicted in the 2020 election tremendous amounts of voter fraud would take place. We'll get Laura back on the line next week, but for now, this interview is packed with pertinent information. Laura goes right to it by explaining how we have been complaining about voter fraud instead of the much deeper topic, election fraud. I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day.
Okay, well, Bill, it's good to be with you. And, we've done interviews with you before. And I think one of the most important things to kind of clarify for people is there's a difference between election fraud and voter fraud. We hear a ton about voter fraud all across the mainstream media. That's their shiny object that they hold out there and everybody focuses on. But after 4 years of doing the work that I've done here in Texas with the election integrity, there really is another more accurate way to say this, and it's called election fraud, which encompasses dead people voting, illegal people voting illegally, and then it also, the bigger picture is counting fraud. Joseph Stalin, one of the most famous quotes that he said was, and I'm going to paraphrase, it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes. And so election fraud encompasses that bigger picture in a computerized world today, the counting computer fraud. And so that's really what we're focused on here in Texas, is trying to make sure the counting processes are accurate and transparent and that the voters get the truth when it comes to election night on the results.
And are there indications that there is election fraud? There's a fraud in the way the votes are counted?
Well, absolutely. We filed a public information request in Houston. Houston is one of the largest counties in the country, in the United States. It's the third largest county. It's behind New York and Los Angeles. And, I ran for city council here in Austin, Texas, and we found what we believe to be our corruption errors and corruption messages on logs that are time date stamps of everything that goes on at that counting computer down at the county office on election night. So in my lawsuit, we believe we found evidence of corruption of memory cards that get put into the counting computer on election night. And, there's all types of error messages that are happening, and we're very concerned about those. So I've been focused on Harris County, which is Houston, Texas, the third largest county. And we did a public information request there. And it's been 2 years. They have ignored this public information request to get what we call the audit logs. They are a time date stamp of the activities on the main counting computer. Everybody puts, campaigns, they will put watchers down at the polls. And we're saying, hey, that's a good idea, but the better place is to put them where the main tabulation computer is and see what goes on there. So we've been asking for these logs from Harris County for 2 years, and we filed a lawsuit. We filed actually a restraining order because they were about to destroy the records. In Texas, you have 22 months that you retain these records, and we were right up against the county, Harris County in Houston, destroying those audit logs for the 2016 election. So we did an public information request. They ignored it. We did another public information request in 2018 for the 18 logs, the 2017 logs, and we requested again the 2016, and they ignored us. So we filed a restraining order, and that restraining order was successful, and they decided not to destroy the records. And so then we went to court. We filed a lawsuit, and we said, we are due these records. If you want honest and transparent elections in the country and in Texas, we have to be able to see these logs. And I've worked in many counties across the state, and I've never had a problem getting these audit logs. But Harris County dug their heels in, and they wouldn't give them to us. And we have to ask that question, why were they not open and transparent and following open records request that we filed. So we filed a lawsuit, and we did it's called a motion for summary judgment, and the judge awarded us the logs. And so we are scheduled to go pick those up next week. But actually, this is something that just happened yesterday. Harris County said they just are not going to be there next week, so we can't come and get them. I was in shock. Absolute. We have a judge's order that says, please give them, it says, we're ordering you to give them to Dr. Pressley, and they're just not going to be there next week. I mean, my head was spinning, Bill. So that's just a recent thing that we found out yesterday afternoon.
Perhaps they need some additional auditing.
I guess they need something like a sheriff to walk in with me in my order and give me the logs. So again, you have to wonder, why do they not want to release these? What's in this stuff, for the last 3 elections, last 3 years? We're going to find out. I have a database of all these audit logs across the country. Well, across the country, but across the state of Texas. And in my lawsuit, I was the first candidate to actually use these in an election contest because there's a ton of information, ton of data. There was a report done in 2007. It was a source code review, and it shows that the issues we saw on our audit logs, the error messages we saw, that source code review from 2007, it was written by a professor at Rice University, professor at Stanford University, said these are counting, you can't trust the counting when you see these error messages on these logs. So, gosh, the information's always been there. We just haven't looked.
Can I ask you a quick question? And that is, how large are these logs? Are they like terabytes?
Well, it's interesting. Some are 1,000 pages. I've seen them. They're over 1,000 pages. And
yeah, but what does that reduce? What does that reduce to in megabytes as the file size?
Well, that's a good question. It's less than a meg.
There you go.
It's a text file.
That's what I'm getting at. They have no excuse for dumping these after 2 years. They can save them to infinity.
That's right. And Texas law requires only 22 months, and that is, that we can debate on if that's valid or not. I think we should keep them forever in case there's an issue going down, down the line. Right. But yeah, they're small files. They're small.
Yeah. Okay.
So, one of the things, we've worked on here in Texas, and, I worked on some of the elections in Florida. And, Florida was a big issue this November. And I'm going to tell you some problems with the Florida databases. Florida ballots, they do have a paper ballot, but they're not numbered, Bill. And so in Texas, we have a constitutional requirement that mandates that our ballots be numbered so you can not find out how someone voted, but at a precinct, you can tell that these numbered ballots were there, and these are the ballots, the numbers that were given to voters, and these are the ones we're going to return to the elections office that were never voted on. Well, here's the problem in Florida. You can have a buttload of ballots come in at a precinct or down at the county office and a buttload come out, and you would never know the difference because they're not numbered.
And we had reports during that last election that election officials were actually filling out blank ballots.
That's right. And so you don't have any integrity when you can do that. Even though there's a paper backup, which is good, the ballots should be numbered sequentially so you can track and trace a group of them that go out to voters and a group that come in. And so I'm going to give you an example. Let's say, Bill, you voted in a state and you knew your ballot number. Let's say you were ballot number 452. And when they do a recount, your ballot shows 452 that you voted for Hillary Clinton. Well, we know that's not going to be the case. So there is a way there to detect election fraud, even with paper ballots. Not all states mandate that the ballot be numbered and that the voter gets to see their number. In Texas, we do. And so, over the last 4 years, Bill, I've really, I'm at the end of the movie on this. We know hacking happens. We know fraud happens. There's no question. We're way past that. So what's the solution? What's the best what I call what are the four corners of election integrity.
Right.
And if those four corners are not there, you get leaky, non-trustworthy elections. So I'm going to give you what I have come to believe in the last year or so after doing a lot of prayer on this, a lot of searching and talking to a lot of people. You first have to have a numbered paper ballot as a backup to go to, and it has to be numbered so that you can't just have ballots come in and ballots go out, right? So number one, you have to have numbered paper ballots. Number two, you have to have good election laws. And in Texas, we have both of these. We have two, check the box in two of these. The third one is you have to have courts that will administer the law as written, right? And in Texas, we have a really strong Texas Supreme Court. We've got a strong Senate, state Senate. We've got a strong Texas House here. And so the fourth component is you have to have candidates, Bill, that will challenge the elections. Now, if you've got all the other three corners and you don't have this fourth one, you've got leaky elections, you've got fraud that can just waltz across Texas, and it does. And I've been working the last 4 years on these issues, and I've worked with candidates, and candidates have actually hired me to help them and show them whether their elections were honest or not, whether we think there were issues of counting down at the main computer. And I've shown them the issues. And I have not had one candidate in this state challenge the election. So if we don't have the candidates stand up, Bill, they're the only ones that have legal standing. We're in big trouble, and the fraud can just continue. So we're trying to do a paradigm shift here in Texas. Maybe candidates that have run in the past didn't understand that they needed to challenge the election when there were problems. We're changing the rules in Texas. We're pointing the finger to the candidates because that's where the finger needs to be. We've got good laws. We've got good courts. We've got good paper ballots with numbers. The component we don't have are the candidates with the moral and political will to stand up. And so this is something we're changing, and we're also informing the donors that there are issues. I had a national PAC give me a call, and there's a county that I was focused on here, and the PAC had supported many of the candidates in that county. And the guy called me, the executive director called me. He goes, "Laura, what happened?" He goes, "I know these candidates." He goes, "We worked on them. We worked with them. We block walked. We gave them money." He says, "I know they won because we did their polls." And he goes, "What happened?" And I said, "Well, we show there were issues, but the candidates will not stand up. We've talked to them. They won't do it." And he said, "Laura, I gave our PAC gave that county $100,000. And we're not going to do that again because it's no different than just putting our money into a wood chipper. It's just wasted." And so here, Bill, here what you have. You've got volunteers, you've got block walkers, phone bankers, donors. They depend on these candidates to stand up because if they're not going to stand up for themselves, how can they stand up for us? Well, the rules are changing in the future. Going forward, we're going to hold these guys accountable. And the finger's going to be pointed to the candidates because the donor class and the volunteers, they don't want to do this work and put all these resources into something that's just going to go down the tubes. So, this is something new that we're going to be pushing on and pressing for. And we want candidates running for office that will stand up if we show them that there are issues. And so, you go to a primary, you have two candidates in the same party. One says they're going to stand up for honest elections and challenge if they feel like they've won and they didn't win. And so here's the deal. Candidates, Bill, they can win the vote and officially not win the count. And that's what we see all over. And if the candidates don't stand up, this thing continues, just one thing after another, and we just have elections that are not honest, fraudulent, and the people in office are not who we picked. So there's
what's the solution?
Issue.
A deposit? Do the candidates make a deposit?
We think the solution is candidates have to have the moral and political will to stand up when they know that their election was potentially stolen. Okay, if they have evidence, they have polls that show they won and they didn't win the count. So imagine, Bill, imagine those candidates, and you and I have talked about this before. If those candidates stand up, is the system going to mess with them? You know, here you've got a candidate that will speak out, will go through the legal process. And, you know, one of the things that is a deterrent for this, you know, for a candidate to stand up is the press. The press really rips up candidates like crazy. They tell them they're sore losers. They pick on them. I mean, it's you know, it's incessant. And then there's a money issue. Well, I believe the money's going to be there. When I did my election contest here in Austin for the city council, I just had faith that money was going to be there. And I'm going to tell you, voters want somebody to stand up. And I'm going to give you an example. Let's just pick on the Democrat Party. Bernie Sanders. Everybody knows the vote was stolen from him. Did he do anything? He did not. People were furious about it because he didn't stand up. Look at the other side. Look at the Republican Party. Judge Roy Moore in Alabama. There were serious issues with that race. He did not challenge.
Serious and uncontested, admitted.
Yes. Yes. And then you've got Florida. We know there were so many issues in Florida. Give me one candidate in Florida that challenged. Do you see the pattern here? If these high-profile guys won't do it, how can a little, you know, a state rep or state senator do it? Well, we're going to, you know, they may be afraid, these candidates might be afraid of the press or afraid of the political fallout. I'll tell you what, they need to be afraid of their voters, afraid of their donors, and have to, you know, do the right thing for the people that invested in them. So this is something that I think we're trying to do a paradigm shift. We want the language to be election fraud, and we want to point to the candidates who have standing. They have the legal standing. In some states, you do have some states allow voters to bring an election contest, but you know they're not as credible as if a candidate does it, because a candidate has all the campaign data and all of this.
All right.
So kind of that's where we are. We're trying to shift this to the candidates, because if the system knows that the candidates won't challenge, they'll just keep doing it. They'll just keep doing it.
So how do you force the candidates to do it?
Well, good question. What we're going to do here in Texas is we're going to start requiring for an endorsement. Well, there are many PACs. There's a lot of groups around Texas here that they are going to say, we have to have your commitment that you will challenge the election if you are brought evidence that shows there was a problem. Okay? And you're going to get some candidates that are going to say, absolutely. Then you're going to get some that say, well, I don't know about that. Right? Okay, well, let's go to the primary and let's see which one wins. And that's going to be the first step. And also donors are going to have to require this. You know, I had a donor here in Texas who there was a candidate that did not challenge the election as they, you know, we were hoping they would. And the donor talked to him, and the donor came back to me and said, Laura, you just saved me a bunch of money, because in the future I'm going to start asking them to start challenging if they think that their election was not accurate and it was stolen. So we've got to get the candidates to do this. This is the first step.
Why don't you get them to make a deposit initially as part of the filing fee that would go towards legal fees?
Oh, you know, I think, you know, that's a great idea. But Bill, I'm going to tell you, it's not the legal fees that are the barrier. It's the moral and political will to go up against the system.
Yeah, because they're offered other things. Either they're offered things or they're threatened with whatever.
That's right. They're offered other things and they're discouraged against it. But really, I'm going to tell you, this is where the rubber meets the road, is with the candidate. It's where the rubber meets the road.
And you're going to try to make this legislation?
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to make it legislation. I'm going to make it dependent on the donors and the PACs and the endorsers to do this. And, you know, because why would you block, walk, and phone bank for someone who's not going to stand up?
Right.
Right. And you know, it's not about the candidate, to be honest with you, Bill. This is not about the candidates. It's about an honest and pure and accountable election system. That's what it's about. And, we're going to be up against the wall in 2020
Right.
with Trump's going to be attacked. There's going to be fraud going on all over the place. And, we are going to have to stand up as a human race. And, if we're going to continue to be victims, we're going to keep getting what we get. We've got to have the courage to stand up.
Well, you've identified the four corners of the solution, and so that's a good start.
Well, you know what? Some states are better than others. I believe we have some of the best laws in the country, and we are in the best position to do this. So we're going to put some pressure. We've got grassroots groups doing this, and I want to, I'm here to help any of your listeners, any of your supporters. I'm here to help people from around the country. And, I would love to help them get also some audit logs of other systems around the country, because I've focused on Texas. I'd like to see some from, other areas. And so I'm here to help with whatever you guys need.
And so your contact email again is?
It's Laura Pressley at startmail.com, LauraPressley at startmail.com. I tell you what, Bill, if we don't have honest elections, we don't have anything in this country. I believe this is the most important thing. I think it's like whack-a-mole. All these political issues, all the, issues that are around the country for this, this bill that needs to get passed in the U.S. Congress, or this bill needs to get passed in the U.S. Senate or whatever. If we don't have the honest people there, we don't have the people that the people picked, you might as well just chalk it up. We're done. This is in my opinion, in my heart, this is the most important thing we do. It's the root cause. My background's computer technology. I've got a PhD in chemistry and physics. I worked in the semiconductor industry. I've got 4 patents on computer technology. We have been just hoodwinked over the last 17 years on this.
Right.
We've known there's issues. We've known it. You've got Bev Harris, who's pioneer in election integrity. You have John Brakey. You have all these people out there. We're past the point of trying to continue to complain about this. We're past that. What's the answer? And I want to hear what people think the answer is. My opinion is we've got to put the finger on the candidates. That's and the donors.
So I had somebody in comments recommend or ask, can't the voters actually make this process happen? And so you've already answered that, and that's they don't really have very good standing, if at all.
They don't. And they don't have access to all the data that the campaign has. And in some states, a voter can't even do it. In Texas, a voter does not have standing to challenge an election. So really, the candidate is it. And if you look across the country, even the states that have the voter option, they just don't have the expertise. They don't have the data. And I'm not sure they have the financial backing that a candidate would. The candidate is good at raising money, or they wouldn't be there. So they can raise the money, and people will give it to them.
I have a question, and that's what type of computers are these? Are they mainframes typically?
No, they're laptops. It's interesting. They're some of them are laptops. Some of them are like a computer tower. Just the programs to tabulate these votes, Bill, are not complex.
Uh-huh.
They're just counting. They're counting numbers. And, what's really good is that somewhere down the line, back 10, 15 years ago, these software engineers loaded in the error messages that they wanted recorded. And, a computer does not make mistakes. It only operates what a programmer programmed into it. So, on these audit logs, these error messages come up and the numbers just aren't matching. And, you've got all types of election records. And this is one way candidates and voters can go determine if there's issues. They can do this themselves. They can check the math. Check the math of the canvassed results along with the voter rolls And you can just check the math yourself. And what we're seeing across the state here in Texas, the math is not matching. And so that's just the fingerprint of a problem. Now, is it an administrative error or is it a computer hack? You won't know unless you do an election contest and you go get the data to figure it out.
Right.
So that's where it gets back on the candidate. So, there's so much, these computer programs are not complicated, but these audit logs are fabulous. They really tell the story of what was going on. And, I really encourage that people start getting those records. I'm here to help with analyzing them. So if there's anything I can do, I'm here.
So people shouldn't be discouraged by not having a great amount of computer knowledge. That you
No.
you can either do it yourself or find other people to help you to work this problem.
That's right. That's right. Put the pressure on the candidates. That's going to be my mantra. I'm at the end of the movie. We're done. We're done with trying to figure out if this is happening. We know it's happening. And, we just talked about multiple candidates, very big name candidates that everybody knows this stuff happened to. There was a problem and they didn't do it. And voters were just on the edge of their seat waiting for candidates to step up.
Right.
And to me, that's the answer. We have to walk through that door and see what's on the other side of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You're wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. I'm still reporting from just outside the citadel of world freedom. Good day.